Welcome to Mindset in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Mindset in Stone podcast. I want to start today with a feeling that I think every single person listening right now is going to recognize instantly. It's that sensation of running on a treadmill that has been cranked up to like level 10. You're sweating, your heart is pounding, your legs are moving as fast as humanly possible, but when you look up and check your surroundings, you realize you haven't actually gone anywhere. You're just tired.
It is the defining tension of modern life. And the source material we're covering today, the classic book, First Things First, argues that this isn't a problem of working harder. It's not even really a problem of time management in the way we usually think about it. It's a problem of the tool we're using to guide us.
Right. This is the central metaphor that kicks everything off, the gap between the clock and the compass. When I read this, it really hit home because I live by the clock. The clock represents, our commitments, appointments, schedules, goals, efficiency. It's essentially what we do and how fast we do it.
Exactly. The clock is all about speed and volume. It's mechanical. But then you have the compass. The compass represents vision, values, principles, conscience, and direction. It represents what we feel is important and why we're doing it in the first place. The central argument of this book is that most of us are being ruled by the clock, while the compass is gathering dust in a drawer somewhere.
There's that incredible image in the book, and I've heard this quoted so many times, but it never stops being scary. It's about climbing the ladder of success. You spend your whole life climbing rung by painful rung, sacrificing weekends, sacrificing sleep, only to get to the top and realize the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall.
That is a terrifying thought. It's the ultimate failure of success. You succeeded at the climbing, but you failed at the placement. And the reason this happens is that we're obsessed with what the authors call the myth of efficiency. We think the solution to the pressure we feel, that level 10 treadmill feeling, is to just get things done faster.
I have definitely been guilty of this. I'll think, okay, if I can just get this new calendar app or learn this speed reading technique, or maybe if I just sleep 1 hour or less, I'll finally catch up. I'm trying to optimize the machine.
But you never catch up, do you?
No, the finish line just moves.
The authors pose a fascinating question to prove this point. They ask, if you were magically granted 15 or 20% more efficiency, if you could suddenly do everything you do today 20% faster, would it solve your life's problems?
My gut reaction is to scream, yes, give me the extra time.
But play that out. If you're in the same mindset you're in now, what would you do with that extra 2 hours?
I'd probably just fill it with more work. Or I'd say, great, I can take on that other project now.
Precisely. You would just be doing more unimportant things faster. The gap between what you're doing and what you value, the gap between the clock and the compass would still exist. You'd just be running the treadmill faster. So the mission of our deep dive today is to move away from the traditional idea of time management, which is all about the clock, and move toward personal leadership, which is about the compass. It's about putting first things first to find peace, not just productivity.
I love that distinction, peace, not just productivity. But before we get to the solution, I want to push back a little bit because it feels like we've been trying to solve this for decades. The book talks about the generations of time management. It's not like we haven't been trying to get organized.
We have been trying, but the tools we've used have actually contributed to the problem. The authors describe 3 generations of time management that have led us to where we are now. It's almost like an evolution of a species. Generation 1 is the most basic. This is the reminders and checklists phase.
The back of the envelope method, this is my dad in the 80s. Buy milk, call mom, fix the sink, scrawled on a scrap of paper in his pocket.
Right. It goes with the flow. If it's on the list and you see it, you do it. If you lose the list or if the note goes through the washing machine, it doesn't get done. It's flexible, sure, but things fall through the cracks constantly. You're constantly reacting. So to fix that, we move to Generation 2. This is where we introduce calendars and preparation.
This is the era of the thick leather planner, the power suit era.
Exactly. We started looking ahead, we valued efficiency, we made appointments, we set deadlines. But the downside here is that the schedule becomes a tyrant. It treats people like obstacles.
Explain that. How does a calendar treat people like obstacles?
Well, imagine you have your day blocked out perfectly. 9:00 to 10:00 is write report. 10:00 is staff meeting. Then a friend calls you at 9:15 in distress, or your child walks in wanting to show you a drawing. In Generation 2, that person is an interruption. They are messing up your schedule. You say, sorry, I can't talk, I'm being efficient.
I feel that. I get annoyed when reality intrudes on my plan. And then we have Generation 3, which I think is where most of the corporate world, and honestly most of us, are stuck right now.
Generation 3 is about prioritization and control. This is the current gold standard. It's the daily planner. It's clarifying values, setting long-term, medium-term, and short-term goals, and then prioritizing your daily tasks, A, B, or C. A is must do, B is should do, C is nice to do.
This sounds correct. I mean, setting goals and prioritizing sounds like exactly what we are supposed to be doing. If I prioritize my day, shouldn't I be successful? What's the problem with Generation 3?
The problem is the paradigm of control. Generation 3 is built on the illusion that we can control our lives if we just plan tightly enough. But we can't control life. We can only control our choices. The authors point out that while we control our actions, principles control the consequences. Plus, Generation 3 is often very rigid. It breeds guilt.
The guilt is real. If I have a list of 10 items and I prioritize them, and then a crisis hits, my kid gets sick or the server crashes, and I spend all day fixing that, I go to bed looking at my list where nothing is crossed off, and I feel like a failure, even though I did necessary work.
Exactly. You feel like you failed because you didn't stick to the plan, even though you responded to reality. That is the running all day but getting nowhere feeling. Generation 3 puts the plan above the person and the clock above the conscience.
So if checklists, calendars, and prioritization aren't enough, what's the missing link?
The missing link is understanding the difference between two primary factors that drive our choices: urgency and importance. We think they're the same thing, but they are completely different drivers.
Okay, let's define these, because I think I mix them up all the time. I treat everything that screams at me as if it's important.
Most people do. Let's look at urgent. Urgent means it acts on us, it presses us, it demands immediate attention. It's the ringing phone, it's the crying baby, it's the Slack notification bouncing on your dock.
It's the stuff that's right in front of your face, waving its arms.
Yes. Urgent things are usually visible, they press on us, they insist on action, they're often popular with others, they're usually right in front of us, and often, and this is key, they're pleasant, easy, and fun to do. But so often they are unimportant.
Wait, pleasant? I don't think of a crisis as pleasant.
Maybe pleasant isn't the right word for a crisis, but it is stimulating. But think about checking email. Is it important? Usually not. But is it urgent? It feels that way. And it's easy. It's satisfying to hit delete or reply.
Okay, so that's urgent. Now, what is important?
Importance has to do with results. If something is important, it contributes to your mission, your values, your high priority goals. But here's the catch, and this is the most critical point in the entire book. Important things that are not urgent require more initiative, more proactivity. We must act on them.
Because the important stuff like planning your career, building a relationship with your teenage daughter, or exercising doesn't usually ring like a telephone.
Exactly. Your health doesn't scream at you until you have a heart attack. Your marriage doesn't scream at you until you're serving divorce papers. The important things sit there quietly, waiting for you to decide to do them.
And because we're reactive creatures, we tend to react to the urgent and ignore the important.
Which leads to what the authors call urgency addiction. And I want to dive into this because it's not just a figure of speech, it's biological.
Biological, like actual chemical addiction.
Absolutely. Think about what happens in your body when there's a crisis. A deadline is looming, a client is angry. What do you feel?
Stress. My heart beats faster, I get laser focused.
That's cortisol and adrenaline. Your body's mobilizing for a fight. And then you solve the problem. You meet the deadline. You calm the client. What do you feel then?
Relief. A sense of, I did it.
That's dopamine. You get a chemical reward for solving the crisis. You feel useful. You feel successful. You are the hero riding in to save the day. If you spend all day in deep thought, planning, preventing future problems, there's no adrenaline. There's no sudden dopamine hit. It's quiet. It's abstract. So if you're addicted to urgency, that important work feels boring. It feels like you aren't doing anything.
We create crises, or we seek out crises, just to feel that validation.
We use busyness as a status symbol. If you ask someone how they are and they say, oh, I'm just so busy, swamped, crazy, it's almost a boast. It implies importance. I am in demand. But the book challenges us to ask, is this busyness a way to avoid the deep, meaningful, perhaps difficult work that really matters? It's a way of anesthetizing ourselves with noise.
That is hard, using noise to drown out the silence. So if we want to break this addiction, we need a better map. We need to see where our time's actually going. This brings us to the famous time management matrix.
This matrix is the core framework of the fourth generation of time management. Imagine a square divided into 4 quadrants. On the left vertical axis, you have urgent and not urgent. On the top horizontal axis, you have important and not important.
Okay, I'm visualizing it. Let's walk through the 4 quadrants. Quadrant I is top left, urgent, and important.
This is the quadrant of necessity. It's the crisis, the medical emergency, the deadline-driven project that is due tomorrow, the crying baby. You have to be here. You cannot ignore a house fire.
Right. If you ignore quadrant I, you die or you get fired. But the problem is living there.
If you spend all your time in quadrant I, you burn out. You're just managing crises. You're a stress case. The only relief you get is escaping to quadrant 3.
Let's skip to quadrant the thirst for a second. That's bottom right. Not urgent and not important.
This is the quadrant of waste. This isn't true recreation. This is doom scrolling social media at 11 p.m. when you're too tired to sleep but too wired to go to bed. This is mindlessly watching TV shows you don't even like. It's escapism.
It's where we go to hide when quadrant I beats us up.
But the real danger, and the place where the deception happens, is quadrant 3. Bottom left. Urgent, but not important.
Why is it called the quadrant of deception?
Because the urgency of these tasks makes them feel like quadrant 3. They feel important, but they aren't important to you or your mission.
Give me some examples of this, because I feel like this is where I live.
This is the ringing phone for a telemarketer. This is the meeting that could have been an email. This is the interruption from a coworker asking, "Hey, do you have a minute?" to talk about something that matters to them but has absolutely nothing to do with your goals. It's other people's priorities masquerading as your own.
This is really tricky, because if I say no to these things, I feel like a jerk, or I feel like I'm not doing my job.
That's the trap. We spend 50–60% of our time here thinking we're being productive, but we're just reacting to noise. We're swatting mosquitoes.
Which leaves us with the Holy Grail. Quadrant 2, top right. Not urgent, but important.
This is the quadrant of quality. This is the heart of personal leadership.
What lives in quadrant 2?
Prevention, capability improvement, relationship building, recognizing new opportunities, planning, true recreation. These are things that, if you did them, would make a tremendous positive difference in your life, but they aren't pressing on you to do them today.
No one is screaming at you to exercise today. No one is screaming at you to write your personal mission statement today. No one is screaming at you to have a date night with your spouse.
But if you neglect them, eventually the health fails, the marriage fails, the business fails, and what happens then? They become quadrant I crises. A heart attack is urgent and important. But it started as a lack of quadrant 2 prevention.
That is the key insight. The goal of this deep dive isn't just to get organized, to help you live in quadrant 2. Because the more time you spend in quadrant 2, preventing fires, building systems, strengthening relationships, the smaller quadrant I becomes. You stop fighting fires because you prevented them from starting.
You move from being problem-minded to being opportunity-minded. You starve the problems and feed the opportunities.
Okay, I am sold on the philosophy. I want to live in quadrant 2. But how do we actually do this? It's easy to say spend more time planning, but when Monday morning hits, the whirlwind takes over. I can't just tell my boss, "Sorry, I'm in quadrant 2 right now. I can't answer the phone."
That's a fair point. You can't just retreat to a monastery. This is where the practical application comes in. The authors propose a shift from daily planning to weekly organizing.
Wait, daily planning is bad. I thought I was supposed to plan my day every morning. That's generation 3.
It's not that it's bad, but it is too zoomed in. Daily planning keeps you focused on the urgent. It keeps you prioritizing what is right in front of you. It's like walking while looking at your feet. You don't see the cliff coming, and you don't see the beautiful mountain path to the left.
That makes sense. If I just wake up and ask, what do I have to do today? The answer is usually just the loud stuff, the stuff that's screaming.
The authors advocate for a weekly organizing process. It pulls the camera lens back. It gives you context. They suggest taking 30 minutes, maybe on a Sunday evening or Monday morning, to look at the week as a whole.
And this leads to my favorite metaphor in the entire book, the big rocks.
It's a classic for a reason. Imagine a large glass jar. Next to it, you have a pile of big rocks fist-sized stones. You also have a pile of gravel, a pile of sand, and a pitcher of water. The jar represents the time you have in a week. That is fixed. You cannot get a bigger jar.
If you put the sand and the water and the gravel in first, which represents all the small, urgent, unimportant stuff, the emails, the scrolling, the interruptions, the jar gets full.
And then when you try to put the big rocks in your family time, your big project, your health, they don't fit. They stick out the top. You're out of time. And this is how most of us live. We let the sand fill the day and then wonder why we have no time for the gym or our kids.
But if you put the big rocks in first,
They fit. And then you pour the gravel in, and it rolls into the spaces between the rocks. Then the sand fills the gaps between the gravel, and the water fills the rest. You can fit it all in, but only if you put the big rocks in first.
the lesson is clear. You must schedule your quadrant 2 priorities, your big rocks, before the week fills up with the sand of quadrant 3 and 4. You don't prioritize your schedule. You schedule your priorities.
That's the mantra. Don't prioritize your schedule. Schedule your priorities.
So practically during this weekly planning session, how do I identify what my big rocks are? Because sometimes everything feels like a big rock. My boss thinks the report is a big rock. My spouse thinks the leaky faucet is a big rock.
That's where the concept of roles comes in. This is brilliant because it forces you to look at your life holistically. The book argues that we often define ourselves too narrowly, usually by our job. I am a manager, but that's just one role.
Right. I'm also a spouse, a parent, a friend, a community member, and crucially, an individual.
To find your big rocks, you identify your key roles. Then, for each role, you ask yourself, what is the one most important thing I could do in this role this week that would have the greatest positive impact?
That is such a clarifying question. Instead of a laundry list of to-dos for work, I look at my role as father. Maybe the big rock for that role this week isn't just be a good dad, which is vague.
Right. Be a good dad isn't a rock, it's a cloud. A rock is specific. A rock is take my son to the batting cages on Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. That occupies space and time.
I see. So I schedule that first. Then I look at my role as manager. Maybe the big rock isn't answering emails, but drafting the proposal for the new initiative. You schedule that block of time.
And you do this for every role. This ensures balance. It prevents that tragic situation where someone succeeds wildly in business but fails in their marriage or loses their health. You're touching every base that matters to you every week.
Speaking of health, there's one role the authors say is non-negotiable. They call it sharpening the saw.
This comes from the story of a woodcutter who is sawing down a tree. He's been at it for hours. He's exhausted, sweating, and the saw is dull. He's barely making a dent in the wood.
A passerby watches this and says, "Hey, why don't you take a brick and sharpen the saw? You'd cut the tree down faster."
And the woodcutter replies angrily, I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing.
We are all that woodcutter. We're too busy working to take care of the asset that does the work ourselves.
Sharpening the saw means renewing yourself in 4 dimensions: physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual. It is a foundational role. If you don't schedule time to exercise, to learn, to connect, to reflect, your production capability, your ability to get things done, collapses.
So in my weekly planning, I literally write down sharpen saw as a role and put a big rock there, like go to the gym 3 times or read a book for fun.
Precisely. You treat it with the same respect you treat a meeting with your boss. If your boss called a meeting, you'd show up. You need to show up for yourself.
Okay, let's play devil's advocate here. I've done my weekly planning. It's Sunday night. I've put my big rocks in. My calendar looks beautiful. It's balanced. It's quadrant 2. Then Monday morning hits. The boss calls with a crisis. The kid gets sick. The plan blows up. Now what? Do I just stubbornly stick to the plan and ignore the broken arm?
This is where the rubber meets the road. This is what separates this method from the rigid Generation 3 planning. This is about integrity in the moment of choice.
Because the schedule isn't meant to be a prison.
Correct. The schedule is a tool, a servant, not a master. When the unexpected hits, and it always will, you don't just blindly follow the plan, but you also don't just blindly react to the interruption. You pause. You consult your compass.
You ask, is this interruption more important than what I plan to do?
Right. If the answer is yes, like your child is breaking their arm, then you change your plan. And you do it without guilt. This is key. You don't feel guilty because you're consciously choosing the most important thing. You're acting from principle, not reacting to pressure.
And if the answer is no, if it's just a coworker wanting to gossip or a non-urgent email, you have the strength to say no or to reschedule.
And you can say no with courtesy and a smile because you have a burning yes inside you. You know why you're saying no. You're protecting a big rock.
That idea of the burning yes is so powerful. It's hard to say no when you don't have a plan. If my time is empty, I might as well say yes to whatever you want. But if I know that hour is reserved for writing my book or being with my kids, it's much easier to decline the interruption.
Exactly. It moves you from victim mode, I have to do this because they asked, to agent mode, I choose to do this because it aligns with my values.
Now, this brings us to a huge part of the book that often gets overlooked in standard time management discussions. We don't live in a vacuum. We live and work with other people. And other people are, well, they are messy. They're inefficient.
This is the shift from independence to interdependence. The first 3 generations of time management are very focused on you, your list, your efficiency, your control. But as soon as you involve another human being, efficiency goes out the window.
The authors make a really bold statement here. They say, you cannot be efficient with people. You can only be efficient with things.
Think about it. You can be efficient with a checklist. You can be efficient with organizing your garage. But have you ever tried to be efficient with a toddler?
Oh my gosh. Okay, kid, here's the checklist. Step 1, eat breakfast. You have 180 seconds. Step 2, put on shoes. Go, go, go. It leads to a meltdown every single time. And then it takes 20 minutes instead of 5.
Exactly. Or try being efficient with a spouse who is upset. Honey, I have 3 minutes to listen to your emotional crisis. Please summarize your feelings in bullet points.
That is a recipe for sleeping on the couch.
With people, you must be effective, not efficient. Effectiveness with people takes time. It takes patience. It takes listening. It takes empathy. These are quadrant 2 activities. They're slow, but they yield massive results.
So if we treat people like things to be managed, we fail. We need a different paradigm.
We need to move from transactional interactions to transformational interactions. Transactional is, I give you this, you give me that. It's controlling. Transformational is treating people as partners. It's seeing them as whole people.
And this changes how we delegate, because delegation is the ultimate time leverage. If I can get someone else to do it, I free up my time. But most of us are bad at delegating. I know I am. I usually just end up doing it myself because it's faster.
The it's faster to do it myself trap is classic producer mindset. But the reason it fails is that we practice what the authors call gopher delegation.
Go for delegation, like go for this.
Yes, go for this, go for that, do it this way. It focuses on methods. Let's role play this. If I'm a gopher manager, I say, hey, I need you to write this report. Use this font. Don't forget to include the graph on page 3. Make sure you call Bob first. Check with me before you send it.
Okay, so you're micromanaging me. I feel like a robot. If something goes wrong, whose fault is it?
It's my fault. Because I told you how to do it.
And if I have a question?
You come back to me. So I haven't actually saved any mental energy. I'm just puppeteering you.
So what's the alternative?
Stewardship delegation. This focuses on results, not methods. It shifts the responsibility to the other person.
How does that sound in practice?
It sounds like this. Here is the project. We need to analyze the sales data and present it to the board. The goal is to show them why Q3 was down. You have access to the sales database and a budget of $500 for graphics if you need it. I don't care how you structure the presentation as long as it's clear in under 20 minutes. I want to see a draft on Wednesday to ensure we're on track. Do you agree to this?
That feels different. You gave me the what and the why, but you left the how up to me.
Exactly. Now, you're the boss of that task. You have stewardship. It engages your creativity. It respects your intelligence.
But it's scary. What if I mess it up?
That's the risk. It requires trust, and it requires training up front. It takes more time initially to set up a stewardship agreement than to just say, go do this. That setup time is quadrant 2. But once you're trained, I don't have to hover. You own it, and I am free to do my own big rocks.
It's an investment. You invest time to buy time.
And it builds the relationship, which leads to the final piece of the interdependence puzzle, the win-win mindset.
We hear win-win a lot, but usually people just mean I win and you don't complain.
True. In this context, win-win means looking for a third alternative. Usually we think in terms of my way or your way. I win, you lose. If you win, I lose.
Or compromise, where we both lose a little bit.
Win-win implies that we will stay at the table until we find a solution that benefits both of us deeply. And the strategy to get there is seek first to understand, then to be understood.
That is the golden rule of communication. But it's so hard.
It is hard because most of us listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. We're just waiting for our turn to speak. We're formulating our argument while the other person is talking.
If you can truly listen to the other person, really understand their needs, their constraints, their values, you can often find a solution, a synergy, where 1 + 1 = 3. You create something better than either of you could have thought of alone.
It connects back to the compass. If I really value this person and our relationship, the compass, I will take the time, the clock, to listen, even if it's not efficient.
Precisely. You're putting the relationship first. First things first.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We have covered a massive amount of ground. We've debunked the efficiency myth running faster on the wrong wall. We've looked at the matrix and realized we're spending way too much time in the urgent, not important trap, deceiving ourselves. We've talked about weekly planning and the jar of big rocks, and we've talked about treating people like people, not things.
It really is a total paradigm shift. We're moving from a life of control to a life of conscience. We're moving from checking boxes to following a compass.
The goal isn't necessarily to get more done. It's to have peace about what you're doing. Peace comes from alignment. When what you do aligns with what you value, the conflict inside you disappears. You might still be busy. You might still have crises, but you won't have that gnawing feeling that you're wasting your life. You won't feel like you're on that treadmill to nowhere.
So we want to leave you with a specific challenge. We don't want you to just listen to this deep dive, nod your head, say that was smart, and then go back to your urgency addiction. We want you to try it.
Here's the challenge. This coming Sunday, or whatever day starts your week, set aside exactly 30 minutes. Find a quiet place. Put the phone in another room.
Step 1, connect with your vision. Just ask yourself, what matters most to me right now? What is my north?
Step 2, list your roles. Don't just list employee. Write down parent, spouse, friend, self. See your whole life on the page.
Step 3, choose 1 or 2 big rocks for each role. One important thing you want to do for your spouse, one important thing for your health. Be specific. Date night Friday at 7, gym Monday at 6.
Step 4, schedule those big rocks into your week first. Before the email flood, before the meetings, give them a time slot. Draw a box around them.
And then fill in the rest with the gravel and sand. And as you go through your week, try to act with integrity in the moment. If you have to move a rock, do it consciously.
And finally, let go of the guilt of the undone. You will never get it all done. There is always more gravel than there is jar. The victory is in knowing the big rocks are taken care of.
I love that image. There's always more gravel than jar. That's freedom right there.
It is. As the authors say, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Simple but profound. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today. We hope this helps you find that compass and maybe, just maybe, lean your ladder against the right wall.
Go live, love, learn, and leave a legacy.
We'll see you next time on the Mindset in Stone podcast.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.